Hey, how are you? Stop right there for just a moment and pay attention. If you are the owner or a volunteer for a nonprofit organization in your area and you are often pulled into event planning or you're about to be pulled into event planning, this one is for you. And I specifically want to chat with you today about award shows. So if you're about to put on an award show, if you've ever thought about it for your nonprofit, if you ever said to yourself, we should really do an award show, but you thought, it sounds like too much, I want you to listen to this video. We're gonna go through just some of the very top highlights of what it takes to put this on and how you can do that with your nonprofit. But I also want to encourage you to download this checklist. So there's a simple checklist, which you can download right now. And it is available for your use and it's free. So if you're listening to this, you can watch this video and then also download this checklist, which I tried to include absolutely everything that you would need to think of and know about putting on an awards event. All right, so let's get right into this. Now this checklist has like 30 key core area items on it. It's fairly comprehensive. It's everything you need to be considering and thinking about. I will be here over an hour going through each of these items. That's why I wanted you to know about this checklist to begin with. But I do want to encourage you to download this checklist. It will be available. And it's a simple way to just, think of everything up front. All right. So in my life, this is my second award show that I've been asked to help with from a nonprofit standpoint. And I'm Andrea with the ADS Agency, which is a marketing and branding firm here to bring you the very best in marketing and branding tips, as well as business tips for those of you who are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and personal branders. And today, for the nonprofit organizations out there who are looking to do award events. So I did an awards events years ago with United Way back in Greenville, South Carolina. That was a Mentor of the Year event. It was a first timer awards show. And then now we're putting on an award for, I'm here in Atlanta, and we just did an award show for NOMAtlanta, which is the National Organization of Minority Architects. And we called it Inspired, the NOMAtlanta Nspire Awards for NOMA. So very fun for the architectural community, really awesome for the first time doing it as a juried awards show, really kicking it up a notch for the first time this year. And so I thought this would be valuable to share with you lessons learned, things to look for, what to start out early, what to do 3 months out, a month out, and then considering all your communications and marketing associated with all of this. All right, so first things first, the number one thing, of course, you want to start with is your date, your target dates and your target venue. It seems like duh, but I promise you everything snowballs with those two things. Nothing happens until that venue is secured with a deposit and a date happens and a date's locked in. So you need to have a couple of target dates in mind to share with your potential venues. You need to have a couple of venues in mind that fit with your theme and all of that. And so that stuff needs to happen early, especially the bigger the market that you're in, the more these venues get booked up fast. So start now. If you're looking at an awards event next year this time, this is the time to start now and start locking in your venue if you can with a deposit, ideally. So a lot of locations want half down. They all kind of have their own thing going on, but whatever it is, be prepared to put down at least $1,000-ish for your venue. All right, so that's just something to look out for first. So you need your date, you need your venue. Once those two things are locked in, you are cooking with grease. So you've got those two things. You also want to look at your award guidelines, very important. So you want people to submit for awards or to nominate people for awards, you need to have some award guidelines in place. So that's before you can even announce that you're having an awards thing and you want people to submit for awards in what's called a call for entry. You need to have the rules for all of this in place. So how do you do that? The number one thing, I promise you this is so consistent with what we do in marketing all the time. The number one thing I tell people to do is you must do your homework. You got to do your competitive research. All right, so let's start there. Let's do some competitive research. Go out there and Google. Google makes everything so easy. It makes your life so much easier. So go out there and Google some comparable events, right? You want to Google some comparable events that have been put out there. And you want to see, what was their look and feel? And look up those submission guidelines and also look up their sponsorship package. Those are all things you want to try to find, if you can, from other awards events. But even if you can't find it for awards events, just find it for other genres of events, especially if you don't have a template yet. So if your organization doesn't really have a good sponsorship package in play, this is the time to get one together. So just Google around for sponsorship packages. You'll find plenty of examples, to kind of give you an idea of where you can start from and how you can build a package that makes sense for you and your organization and your budget, as well as, for your audience, your potential sponsors. You don't want to give packages that are not going to feel right to sponsors that you're approaching. So that sponsorship package is super important, and those submission guidelines are going to matter as well. All things that you have to lock down before you can even begin to put the word out there that you're having an event. All things you got to lock down first. So your venue, your date, your award submission guidelines, your sponsorship package, and ideally, if you're going to do a keynote and MC, that would be something you'd want to lock in early. This year we kind of decided, kind of last minute, it was suggested to have a keynote. So magically, thanks to some good friends in the community, we got our keynote this year, which was fantastic. But your keynote, ideally, they're going to be busy people. They need plenty of time, plenty of notice. So give them as much notice as possible and try to lock them in early. Make sure it's someone that makes sense for your industry, for your space. Try to make it sure that it's somebody with some kind of name recognition or brand recognition in the community. People know their face, people know their name, they know the company or the organization they're associated with, and it draws some kind of interest, okay? So that's very important. All right. So then you want to look at what happens a year out and 6 months out. For sure, try to lock in. If you're going to have entertainment, like a band, DJ, blah, 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 you want to lock them in as early as possible. They're likely going to require a deposit. You want to look at your budget. Okay, budget drives everything. Budget will drive everything. So I want you to look at your target revenue. Your revenue is going to consist of a couple of basic things you probably already know, but that's going to be your ticket sales. So you want to come up with a number you want to get from your ticket sales, your jury fees. So if you're having juried awards or some kind of submission fee associated with submitting a name for an award, then you want to include the revenue you plan to get from that. You also want to include your sponsorships. So money you're going to get from sponsorship dollars. All those are potential sources of revenue for you. And then you can also include some things like table sales associated with ticket sales and that kind of thing. But that's mainly going to be your source of revenue for this project. These are the expenses. This is all the things you need to think about up front ahead of time. So expenses, you have your venue, of course, that's going to be your number one biggest thing next to the food, which is the catering, and sometimes those two go together, sometimes they're separate, just kind of depends on the space. Some venues will let you have, will allow you to bring in your own caterer, and others won't. So you need to know that up front, especially depending on if your heart is set on a particular venue for any reason. So venue, food. If you have jurors, sometimes it's nice just to throw them a pizza party on the day that they're going to be deliberating over your awards. So if they're going to be in the same room, budget about $100 for your jurors. Also, decor. So you want to plan on some decor. That can be done through a number of different ways, but just make sure you're thinking about what do we want for centerpieces, what's, the theme of our event. We had wings at our recent event, so, next year might we do feathers and blah, 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 we don't know. So, but whatever kind of theme you want to go with for the year, it's totally up to you, and this is a fun area that you can really play with a lot, but you also have to be sensitive to how much you allocate towards that for your budget, right? So there's decor, there's your AV, which can also be included with your venue. There's entertainment, which is your band or a DJ, something like that. Your photographer, you want to budget about $200, $250, depending on the photographer. You know, that usually you can find a pretty good one in that range, depending on your market. Other photographers may charge a good bit more, $750 and up. Think about how much wedding photographers are for one day. You know, so it just depends on the level of quality that you want, but just know you do get what you pay for. So it needs to be someone with a quality camera and a quality eye, and make sure you leave room in the budget for a photographer. Do not leave this to your cell phones and your, you know, your high school kid brother. Don't do that. All right, hire a photographer. Okay, and you're gonna also want to budget for your awards, for trophies. If you also have a mixture of awards with trophies and certificates, you wanna budget for the frames associated with that, and printing. Printing by itself is its own line item because there's plenty of things to print. Your program, your flyers you want your crew to have ahead of time to be able to, you know, pass out, have some kind of handout while they're talking to people before the event. Months before the event to spur ticket sales and all that. So good number of printing items associated with this event. Social media ads. You're going to want to put some level of a budget towards social media ads, especially if this is your first one. So the level amount of what you do kind of depends on what you're trying to do. But, you know, if you're a nonprofit, at least put $100-ish towards social media ads. That's at least a little bit you can work with. So social media ads, and then banners for sponsors. Banners for sponsors. So if you're planning that into your sponsorship package, just know that should be in there as well. And then in your budget, you want to include like a break-even scenario. So what's the mix of tickets and sponsorships? What's the final, you know, dollar amount we have to break even with our expenses? So you just want to play with the scenarios there. You know, if we hit, you know, our attendance goal, what in addition to that do we need in sponsorships to make sure that we're at least breaking even with this first event? And then eventually you want to grow the event over time as it gains a reputation. So more of those dollars can come from sponsorships. You can ask for bigger sponsorships the more notoriety and the bigger the event grows. So you also want to set your ticket price. Very, very important to set your ticket price. That's really going to be dictated by your budget. So you want to really consider the audience size that you intend to be there. Is it 100 people? Are we talking 300 to 500 people? Is this a massive, humongous event with like 800 to 1,000 people? You know, all of that really plays into the kind of ticket price that we're going to end up with, along with the sponsorships we expect to get. So there's a balance at play there between ticket prices and audience size and a budget for sponsorships, a realistic target for sponsorships, which we'll get to as well. You also, setting your ticket price depends on the expenses you need to cover, right? So again, that delicate balance and mix of revenue and covering our expenses. All right. Sponsorship targets are super, super critical. Sponsorship targets are going to be super critical for you. And so when talking about sponsorship targets, you really need to think about who has the best relationships with what companies and organizations. So you need to sit down with your team, and this is an all hands on deck because we need the biggest circle of influence that we can get here in this room, right? So all hands on deck, leadership on down, everyone we can get to, who's the best networkers, who has the most influential contacts, at what organizations that can help get us sponsorship dollars in the door. That's what that's about. This first year, it means a lot. And you need to start that ASAP. Start talking to people ASAP. Start getting your targets together ASAP. So I recommend using Google Docs. Use a Google Docs spreadsheet. It's shareable. Everyone can access it. It can be updated real time. And people can go in there and add in, you know, who who their person is, who their company is, who's the person approaching that company, what's the ask, so what dollar amount are we gonna pitch them, and then you want to like a status column to say like, here's where we are with that ask to date. And then next to that, you want your actual dollars committed. So what did they commit? Here's what we asked for. Here's what they committed to. And then you also want a column to check off when that money is received. All right. So that's your full checklist for sponsorship targets. That, my dear friends, is a very critical part of any event that we ever do for nonprofits, is that sponsorship target list. It matters so much. We must have it. And those sponsors matter. Okay, so that's everything to keep track of. And every meeting, you need to be referring to that list. And you need to encourage your team to use it in between meetings. During the meeting and all that. But every meeting, you need to refer back to that document and stress the importance of getting that sponsorship money in the door. In the door. Who are we talking to? Who's talking to them? What's the ask? What are they committing? All that, drive that home every meeting. Very critical. You do not have an event without sponsors. They make your event happen. You must have them. So that's super critical. That's a big part of this. And along with that is your sponsorship packet, because you can't talk to your sponsors without their sponsorship packet, right? They need something to look at. I kind of view a sponsorship packet as like the beginning of the negotiation piece. So you're talking to sponsors, you need something to talk over. So it just gives you a baseline, but be flexible with your sponsor. If you're talking to them and they're like, well, yeah, I can give you a $2,500 sponsorship, but we're not going to be there, so we don't need 8 tickets or 16 tickets to the event. So that's not really going to be helpful for us. But what we would like is an opportunity to do like a webinar with your audience, say post the event or before the event, whatever. Like, be flexible, see what you can do, see how, see what's important to them, what they're trying to do, the goals they're trying to accomplish in their own business and mission. It's best if you kind of have a feel for that beforehand, so you know how to talk to them when you're actually approaching them and say, hey, I wouldn't even be coming to you if I didn't think this was a great opportunity for you and your business, and let me tell you why. Like, you need to be able to sell that to these potential sponsors. So, sponsorship packet, super, super important. Okay, 6 months to 3 months out. 6 months to 3 months out, we want to be looking at photography and decor. We a little bit talked about photography and decor before. This goes through a couple more things. Basically, you want to make sure that your photographer is capturing quality photos that you love. And also, very important, you want to make sure that you get a list of photos that they need to make sure they're getting. Of course, they're going to know what to do and how to capture all of the awardees as they're getting their awards and all that. But after the event, if people don't know they're getting awards, we need photos of these people afterwards with their awards so everyone can see who the winners were. Very, very important. You also probably want team photos. So whoever the committee was that put it on, and especially your board, you want a picture of them. So there's a list of essential photographs. If you came after this event and was like, oh, we didn't get that photograph, and you're gonna be so mad about it, make sure it's on this list. Okay. Decor, we kind of talked about decor. It gives a couple of tips in here for that. 3 months out, do your call for entries. About 3 months out is pretty good. Why 3 months out? Because you want those entries in about a month before the event. So it gives people 2 months lead time between the call for entries when you're asking them to actually submit for an award, call for entries, to 2 months. 2 months later, it gives them 2 months to actually fill out all that information, think about what they want to do, gives them time to pull it together. Unless they're all procrastinators, which many people are, But at least they can't blame you for saying that you didn't give them enough time, and that becomes their excuse for not submitting. So you never want to say that you didn't give them enough time. 2 months is pretty much enough time for most people, most companies, to get an award submission together. And then we give them 2 months, then you're going to be a month out from the event. That gives your jury time. So you need your team to have time to go through all the submissions, package them up nicely, make sure they're uniform. If they have to redact information, okay, but they need time to do that. Your team needs time to do that. And they need time to get it over to your jurors. So that's another point, is selecting your jury, which ideally, you want to think through, what are our jury requirements? Do they need to be out of state? Can they be in our organization? Obviously, they need to be experts at looking at this kind of information, whatever awards you're giving. And there may even be opportunities to highlight and showcase your jury. So, as a way to thank them for their participation, you can do a little visibility plug for them. Include their pictures in your social media posts and your email blasts, just to say thank you to the jury for what they did for you. Also, just like you had a sponsorship target list in that Google Excel spreadsheet for sponsors, you also want to have the same kind of spreadsheet going, and I would recommend just keeping this all in the same document. For your budget, do tabs for your sponsors, and do a tab for your targets for entries, for submissions. So you got to go after and beat the bushes for these submissions for awards as well. Who's going to submit? Like, we need people to give these awards to. And it is not as easy just putting it out there and just saying, if we put it out there, they will submit. No, they won't. You have to go after people and say, hey, are you going to submit? We hope you submit. Please submit. Ask them several times, put out communications to them several times, individually ask people behind the scenes, ask your team to ask people. There's a lot of asking going on between sponsorships and a call for entry. So you need a target list for your entries as well. All right, next is your communications plan. Critical for your event, okay? Communications is the next thing. Next to sponsors, communications makes this all happen. So you need to consider all your communication vehicles available to you and what's going to be the most effective. So your audiences, but typically it's going to be your e-blast. You're going to have your e-blast, you're going to have a landing page, you're going to have your social media, right? And you're also going to have some publications that may do some things for you. You're going to have your in-person things, so there may be some opportunities to directly announce your event at other events. So other events that you go to, other events that other board members go to, there may be that opportunity to plug your own event there and say, hey, we have something coming up I think you should know about, if it makes sense for that audience, right? If that's an audience that you want there, you may want to do that. And when you make that announcement, it'd be great, wouldn't it, if you had flyers to pass out with you. So as people are hearing about it, they're getting a visual and they're like, oh, this sounds good. Yeah. And if you can swing it, putting it on a PowerPoint behind you is even better. Everything that can kind of get that message hammered in that this is big, it's important, they should be a part of it. So consider all your communication vehicles and opportunities. Also consider your audiences. It's not just your attendees. You have your jury to communicate with, and I recommend point people for all these things if you can spare them. Your jury needs communication, your team needs communication, so you need a team leader, you need your keynote speaker, if you have one, needs communication. You need potential award submitters. Those people need their own set of communication. They need their communication. They need their submission guidelines. They need deadline reminders. Deadline reminders are super important. So they can't say like, I missed it, I didn't know. You never want that to be the problem because you didn't send out that information. They should very well know. And as a matter of fact, we even put like a time clock, a countdown time clock for when our submission deadline was going to hit on the landing page for the event. So people were literally referring to that time clock. It was funny to see, but they actually used it, which was great. So your award submitters need communication. Your potential attendees, of course, need communication about early bird tickets, when things are going to go on sale, and even when early bird is over, when regular ticket sales end, how many days they have. They've got a month until ticket sales end. They got 2 weeks until the event, a week until the event. The day before, can they buy tickets at the door? I mean, they really consider the fact that a lot of people wait till the very, very, very last minute. I'm one of them. Most of the time, people wait till the very, very, very last minute because they don't know if they're going to be able to go to your event. Unless it's a super critical event for them, they have options to go to all the time. So you're going to need to stay in front of people and remind them how much time they have to still get in on your event if they like. So we talk about ticket communications and flyers. We talked about that. The month of is going to be very, very critical. So the month of social media contests are awesome. I'm going to do a whole different video about this social media contest. But we did a social media contest called the Village Voice. And it's where people could vote. It's basically a popularity people's kind of vote between Facebook and Instagram for their favorite design. So again, this is Architecture Awards that we did recently. And we just put the best images up from each design that was submitted and let people vote. It turned out fantastic. When I tell you, I mean, literally this is 50 times, 50x, 50, not 15, 50, 50 times the normal amount of engagement that we ever get. We had 23,000 impressions, organic impressions. This was not boosted at all. There were no ads around this. We didn't boost the Facebook photo album on this or anything else. All we did was we put out email communication and we kept people up to date through our Instagram stories and Facebook stories about standings for these competitions online. People just picked it up and ran with it. So, I mean, 23,000 impressions organically for a page that does great to get a reach of 90 people on a typical post is amazing. It's absolutely fantastically phenomenal. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend coming up with your own social media thing that can get people going and get people competitive. It was awesome. I love that. So another time we'll talk about that. Excuse my voice here. Also, you want to think about care for your keynote. So in this instance, we kind of got our keynote very last minute. However, going forward, yes, care for your keynote. Make sure they have premium VIP care. They have their own premium seating up front. People greet them. They're taken care of. A plate is saved for them. A lot of people don't like to eat before they speak. They have plenty of water. They are well photographed and they get their pictures after the event and all that. So, total keynote care. It's nice to assign them a point person who can just be dedicated to them for the evening. So that's great. Also, next most important thing to sponsors and awards is getting people there to see it. So you need to spur your ticket sales. And so one thing we did I thought was good was that we incentivized our team to to sell tickets. So we said to our board, anybody who sells 5 tickets or more, you're going to the event for free. I mean, of course, we're going to give our board a discount, but it was just the fact that if you sold 5 or more tickets, you get to go for free. That's kind of nice, And so it gives you a reason if you're not normally an outgoing salesperson, you're not pushing things on people. That's kind of a personal incentive, like, I can get my ticket paid for free if I just get 5 people to go. Do give special discount codes via Eventbrite. Most people will use Eventbrite for events. Give special discount codes. There's an area where you can do that. It works well. People love to feel like they have the inside track and they don't even care. If 5% of a ticket means all they get is $2.50 off, they don't care. It's the fact that they got more off than somebody else next to them. So give a discount code. Also, tie in seats with submissions. So if someone submitted for an award, we automatically gave them 2 complimentary tickets to the event, which I think is great because it's making sure you have a packed room. The key to that is not just saying they get 2 complimentary tickets, they need to understand they have 2 complimentary tickets and you need to get 2 names from them. So don't just tell them they have it, actually actively go pursue them for 2 names. I need 2 names of people who can attend this event for you. And once they know, oh, I'm accountable for giving names, then they have to think through like, oh, who can come? So that's way different from, oh, I get 2 complimentary tickets and then you forget about it. This is actively making sure people and butts are in seats. And so you got to track people down. Same thing with sponsorships. If you're giving away tickets with your sponsorships, they need to understand, hey, don't forget, you've got 8 tickets with your sponsorship. Are you going to use them? Because if you're not, we do have other people you could gift them, to an unworthy organization, whatever. So just make sure those complimentary tickets are being utilized. And if they're not, use that as leverage to invite others. You could invite community dignitaries, politicians, community leaders who are important and you want at your event just for exposure purposes. So make sure you are keeping track of those complimentary tickets. Use them wisely. Okay? So also VIP care. VIP care. So your award submitters, your honorees, and your sponsors, double check, triple check that their names are spelled properly. Ensure that they're going to be at that event. It's very important. Bodies need to be there. This event doesn't happen with everyone, submitting and not coming. They need to be at the event actually. And so ultimately, you want to create a seating list so that your guests of honor they all have premium seating. So they need to sit up front. The people who paid the most need to be front and center. All those things, just think through who should sit where and why. Very important to people that they get treated that way. A month ahead, you also want to prep your PowerPoint. It takes time. It cannot just be whipped together. You have to prep your PowerPoint ahead of time. And you also need to select a Vanna White. So while that may seem quite sexist, every award show benefits from having a Vanna. They just do. And, it's great if they can be lovely and young, but it's even better if it's somebody who can be connected to the organization, has some kind of story associated with it. So as you announce them and they're coming up when it's time to give awards, you can share, people can already see, well, that's a lovely face. Oh, that's so sexist. They just put a pretty face up there. No, it's not just a pretty face. It's a pretty face with a smart head attached. This is not just a pretty face here just for your eye candy purposes. It is actually somebody who cares about the organization. It has something to do with it. You can share their credentials and all that so people can respect it more, right? And that's good visibility for your Vanna as well. So very good to have a Vanna that is appropriate for your organization. Also, you want to create your script. Creating a script takes some time. If you want access to my script, let me know, because it does take time to write all this out. You have to be thoughtful about what goes into this script. And also importantly for your MCs, they need to practice this thing because everybody's not great at reading. Some people are great at just extemporaneously speaking, which is wonderful, but you need people who can also read on the spot. So it's important to try to build in practice time for your script. And this is also important for timing purposes. So this way, ideally ahead of time, you would do this at the venue. Have a day where you can just run through the hours worth of the actual program with your MC, have your presentation up, have the sound going, have your queued up music that's not associated with a band or whatever ready so that you can kind of do a run through and make sure everything flows as smoothly as possible. Because the key to making this work is let's keep this thing moving in motion so we can get people on time and out of there, right? not just out of there, but onto the fun stuff so they have time to enjoy it, because every venue has a close down time. So you don't want to use up all your time with plenty of people pontificating, and taking up all the stage time just because they love to talk. This is why it's important to stay on script. So you need people who will stay on script, and a script is critical to your event. Make sure you have 3 copies of this the day of. Volunteers, you're going to need plenty of hands for volunteers, specifically for your registration area. You're going to want it for placing programs and seats. That you want people who will place the table tent cards in the right places according to your seating chart. You want to have your band in place, so somebody who's responsible for dealing with the band, making sure they get paid, they know where to go, they know if they get food or not. They're all things that seem small to us but matter that night. So you're going to also need volunteers for setup and breakdown, and also award arrangements to arrange the awards in the right way. Again, another bonus of having Ivana is he or she can help make sure that the awards are not only in proper order, but that they're given to the right people. So you just want to make sure that the wrong awards aren't given, especially if they're already engraved ahead of time. So you don't want that mix-up happening. Ivana helps with that, okay? Also, you want to design your program ahead of time, so you want to consider your budget with that, make sure all the names and logos are on there properly, and you want to also include time frames on your program so people can kind of have an idea of when to expect things to happen during that night. And again, ensure it's a packed room, so you want to double check, make sure all the sponsors, that they're giving names of people who are coming to this. That means they talked to people and said, hey, will you come to this event? Do you have time? Is your evening free? They're actively getting names of people who will be there. So double check all that stuff, and also double check with your award submitter, same thing. But you also want to check with your community dignitaries as well and make sure that they're going to be there like they said they would. You have to just keep reminding them, because if people don't get reminders, they forget and they didn't put it on their calendar, and they're like, oh man, I really wanted to go, but that's just such popped up. Stuff like that happens all the time. So you want to give people as little excuses as possible. Try to make sure there's no way possible they could have not heard about this. So if they committed and we're reminding them, they should be there. All right, and finally, countdown. Yay! This is so much to run through. I told you I could be here over an hour talking this through with you, but again, this is all in this document, which I gladly will give to you for free in exchange for signing up for my email list, which I hope you'll enjoy. So you want to do a run through. We already talked about the run through. Ideally, week of, with all your people. There's a whole list of things you want to print out and bring with you in addition to your awards. You want to make sure you have your certificates. If you have certificates, that they're signed and framed, that your table tent cards are assorted with their logos, and all the VIP people are assorted along with you've got your table assignment sheet as well. You want 3 copies of your script, award envelopes. So fun for drama purposes. So how fun is that to actually open an award envelope on stage? So fun. Do it. Okay. 3 copies of the script, 3 copies of your attendee lists. Bring permanent markers for your volunteers to check people off. And make sure you have someone else prepared to print backups of these the day of. So, some of you may know this. If you watched my last video, you know that I was on my way to this awards ceremony, the one I'm talking about right now. I was on my way to this last week, literally to this day, and somebody ran into the back of me, and I had all the award stuff for all this major stuff I'm talking about right now, the printables and everything, the programs, everything in my car. And I was just in time to be just on time when I wanted to be there. And because that happened, it threw everything off and it made everything late, and ish happens. However, what I learned from that was let's have other people, you have everything, but let's have someone else have backup copies, or at least they're able to print that stuff, day of on the fly if needed, if something should happen to you. So that is like the hard lesson I learned. Seriously, the hard lesson I learned. Have backups for your backups. All right, enough said about that. Make sure, in your final communications to your team, people understand, they know what times to be there and how critical it is for the timing of your event. So make sure you have more than enough people to help. The more hands, the better, and they all know what to do. Finally is your post-event communications. You want to send out an email with a survey along with the photos. So you want to put up a photo album, link to all that stuff. You want to create a blog post and a social media post announcing all your winners. Very good. And also, if it's possible, if you're in a national chain of all this stuff, you want to encourage your award submitters to also submit nationally to whatever national award is available. And finally, thank your sponsors and keynote speaker again. You want to thank them personally, and just make sure that they feel well taken care of after the event, and that you appreciate them and their sponsorship and their presence and your keynote also. So that is it. Woo! A lot, right? Awards are so much, but this is the video I wish I had, because I'd done an awards event before, but it was years ago for Mentor of the Year. So I had in mind some things, but when you don't do it all the time, you forget some details, and the success of these events are in the details. So I created this video for you. I may watch it again for myself when I'm ready to do something like this again. And I'm also gifting you this awards checklist. I hope it's helpful for you. It's the checklist I wish I had when we started out on this process over a year ago. So that's all for today. If you like this video, please take a moment, give it a like below, and also leave a comment for me on a tip you learned or questions you have. If you want templates for any of this stuff, I'm happy to give it to you. I want you to have a great event. And finally, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Whether you're listening to this on podcast or you are watching this on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, like my page on YouTube. What you need to do is like this video and subscribe to this channel, and click the little bell for notifications, because if you don't do that, you'll likely never see these videos pop up ever in your timeline. So you need to do that. Click the little bell. That is all, people. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again soon, and otherwise have a great week. Cheers. Mwah.